Today we will talk about XDC, XRP, and XLM, but how they are all tied together and connect to USDC and BlackRock as well, where it could possibly become a CBDC or some kind of asset that could effectively act as a CBDC. Now, there are some connections to SHX and Casper, but let's just concentrate on XDC, XRP, and XLM. Now, I am a bit sick. I have a cold, or I have allergies, or some kind of thing, so I'm a bit off today. But I just highly suggest to play all of my content at 1.75x anyway. So we have the announcement that USDC and SBI are joining forces to increase USDC circulation and transform the financial landscape in Japan. Now, I talk a lot about how XDC and XRP are connected, but this announcement right here is really interesting and it goes really deep too. So here is a comment on the importance of the connection to not only XRP but XDC here. So people are thinking about XRP. Yeah, sure. I mean, that makes sense, primarily because XRP is concentrating on the cross-border payment space, and they are probably the company that has the largest inroads into creating a CBDC, because I think they're partnered up with about 20 countries at the moment, but XDC is partnered with USDC now, which is huge for excuse me. It's huge for XDC and all of the trade finance applications as well. So you've got Impel, Comtech, Trada, and you have a number of other things too. Trade tech is probably the one I concentrate on a lot, and trade finance as well. So just by being able to even more directly connect to USDC, that can bring a lot more capital into the trade finance industry, which XDC is trying to tokenize. It is worth anywhere between about 30 trillion and 115 on the high end from what I have found. So here is the official announcement from SBI VC Trade. USDC is a go for Japan. Now, how are XDC, XLM, and XRP all connected? Well, a lot of it is by way of SBI and R3 Corda. Now, as far as XDC goes, they are the at this point in time publicly the main token that is used in the R3 Corda settler that is concentrating on providing financial services into the trade finance industry. But R3 is also connected to SBI, and you can see that even more here, where you have the connections in between XDC and SBI, which goes up to SBI R3 Japan, which goes up to SBI Ripple Asia, which connects into XRP. They both have direct connections into the DTCC as well, which transacts about 10 trillion every day. And here is a little bit on XRP. Of course, they are directly connected into SBI and SBI R3 and R3 Corda. I do a lot of content on how I think that that XRP can and probably is being implemented in the R3 Corda settler itself, just because the code in order to actually make that work is publicly available out there. So why would all of these financial institutions and large enterprises and companies who are already so connected into XRP, why would they not want to be able to use XRP in that? It is a hypothetical at this point in time, but I do believe that there is a very high likelihood that that the R3 Corda settler is at least being configured by individual companies to be able to connect to use XRP. Now, the more indirect connection here is to XLM. Now, of course, we have a direct connection to USDC and Circle, and they have, in fact, used the XLM network to move financial aid to Ukraine. I think they did that back in 2022, and that also looks a lot like a CBDC, which I will talk about more here in a bit. But to further connect on USDC and XLM, now I don't pay a lot of attention to this just because I don't really understand all of the connections on my own, and I do think a lot of them are kind of a long shot and in all honesty probably a reach, but it is interesting how the logos for XLM and USDC are very comparable, and it makes sense when you look at who is actually involved in all of these companies. And we have a direct connection in between SBI and XLM in regards to their partnership with Elliptic Software. So here is XLM, highlighted partners, USDC. That is more about that. But then you have Elliptic as well, which is connected to SBI. And that just explains how Elliptic then ties into XLM as well. So here is the Elliptic site. They are a blockchain blockchain analytics company. They do a lot of kinds of services that would be of a lot of interest for a large financial institution or a large enterprise who wants to get into crypto and who would need certain things in order to have full regulatory compliance as well. But here is just a reminder of how interconnected XRP and XLM are. Now, of course, we know that XLM was a direct fork of the XRPL, and it has evolved to have its own features that the XRPL has not included a lot of those yet. but they are very interconnected, and it all goes back to who was involved. All of these come out of the PayPal mafia. You've got Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Jeb Caleb, a lot of guys in the electronic payment space. And here is what I was talking about with how all of this can move very well into even further using USDC as a CBDC. If you look at what USDC and XLM did as far as humanitarian aid went for Ukraine, it looks a lot like what a CBDC distribution model might actually look like, and that could very well run on the XLM network because USDC can already run on the XLM chain itself. So now, as we tie the CBDC part into BlackRock and how they are positioning themselves to possibly effectively operate as a alternative to the Federal Reserve, it gets even more interesting with who is involved and how it all ties back into XLM and XRP. So here are some opinions of how this might actually work. So CBDCs get banned from being created by the U.S. Federal Reserve, which I think that the U.S. Can and will eventually have a CBDC once all of our politicians figure out how to actually profit off of it. There has been a lot of public and government pushback to CBDCs at this point in time, but I don't think that's a positive thing. I think that they are just trying to figure out how to profit off of it and how not to have it go against their current unofficial and official relationships with very large financial institutions. So it just so happens that there is already a well-tested, very viable solution in public use right now that is USDC on XLM. It just so happens it is basically BlackRock. So here's an example. See how this works? Don't trust theirs, trust ours. Tether is not owned by BlackRock. USDC is owned by BlackRock, and I think they are heavily invested in Coinbase as well. So here's a prediction. Enough parts of the U.S. will ban a CBDC from the Fed that makes them non-viable for adoption. In comes a globally adopted, I can't say STs well, from BlackRock. USDC can be the de facto US CBDC. And now we begin to connect XRP and XLM further into BlackRock itself, and we will hear from the CEO of BlackRock here in a bit. So at Ripple Swell 2023, you had Miriam Kawan from Circle, which is an arm of BlackRock at this point. And I did find, So I did find an article from January of 2023 that said that banks are concerned that USDC can become a backdoor CBDC with BlackRock's help. Now, why would they be concerned? Well, it's because it takes power away from the U.S. financial institutions, and particularly from the Federal Reserve itself, which BlackRock has to be very careful if they are trying to position themselves as an alternative to the Federal Reserve. But just with how they are being so public, I don't think that they are really worried about that. And that probably worries me the most out of all of this, is that if they are not afraid of pissing off the power of the Federal Reserve, which essentially controls pretty much everything that happens in our country, and a lot of things in the government, then why aren't they afraid of them? And that just makes me think that BlackRock is even more powerful than the Federal Reserve, which is pretty terrifying. But it does have some comments in here that would seem like BlackRock could use this to compete. So BlackRock and USDC for capital market transactions. Why the Federal Reserve might refuse RRP access, which is reverse repos. I have heard that a lot. I am not a financial guy, so I can't really comment on that a lot. But just for the sake of actually understanding this a bit more, how about we actually look this up live? What is a reverse repo? It is a reverse repurchase agreement is a short-term agreement to sell securities in order to buy them back at a slightly higher price, which essentially means that BlackRock could sell USDC and then effectively use that as a loan and then get paid back with interest on that. That sounds a lot like how the Federal Reserve actually works, which is really interesting. So here we have some
this technology is going
to here we have some commentary that the next generation of markets will be the tokenization of securities by way of ETFs. Now, we just talked about how BlackRock could provide capital through USDC by way of the reverse repo to actually compete as an alternative to the Federal Reserve. And that is involving securities, because USDC is at this point told to be 100% backed by the USD. So it is not a direct comment on this, but I think it is very telling.
I believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, well, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in an index, in ETFs, are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. We will, and if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole.
That sounds like what you would have to have for a CBDC. Huh. Well, now I can't, I wanted to take an opportunity to show that a lot of people who talk against these kinds of assets, and in particular against XRP, are invested in these exchange traded funds and products revolving around XRP. In the 21 shares XRP ETP, you've got Anthony Pompliano, who is a Bitcoin maxi, and who has talked a lot about how XRP is trash. Well, yeah, that's a little ironic. You've got Catherine Wood, who runs, I think, the largest crypto ETF at this point. I forget that because I'm not too interested in that end of things. And you've got Morgan Creek highlighted as well. I'm not familiar with them, but if I knew who was involved in that off the top of my head, it would probably be pretty ironic as well. So I wanted to make a quick comment about how SHX is well positioned to profit off of this as well. They are directly linked to both XRP and XLM. Ripple is a direct investor, and they are connected to XLM as well because it runs on the XLM network itself, which with all that SHX actually does, they are very well positioned to be able to run some kind of a CBDC like asset as well. And I found it interesting that USA Circle is now replacing USDC with Casper as it has been proven to be more reliable. I think that's a joke, just because the price of Casper, but I do want to check into that a bit more as well. So I think that all of this information right here is probably one of the more important connections that I have actually made, and one of the more terrifying ones as well, because BlackRock seems to be positioning itself to compete against the U.S. Federal Reserve.